Good evening. Welcome to Loveworld USA News. I'm TGK Andre. First, a quick look at the top stories this evening. Judge sides with Trump administration as U.S. Institute of Peace faces overhaul. UPenn faces federal funding freeze over transgender athlete policies amid lawsuit from former swimmers. Houston residents demand flood protection as Texas lawmakers debate water crisis solutions. Jury orders Greenpeace to pay $660 million over Dakota pipeline protests. Boston Celtics sold for a record $6.1 billion to a group led by private equity executive Bill Chisholm. And now to the news. A U.S. District Court ruling has upheld President Donald Trump's authority to restructure the United States Institute of Peace following a legal dispute between the Trump administration and the government-funded institute. The ruling denied USIP's request for a temporary restraining order, which accused the Department of Government Efficiency of an unlawful takeover. The Trump administration stated that the decision reinforces executive authority and ensures accountability and transparency within federally funded institutions. Following the ruling, an official said that USIPS is now on the right path to fully comply with the president's executive order, which mandated a reduction in board members and operational scope. The conflict escalated after the Trump administration fired 11 of USIP's 14 board members, replacing former acting president George Moose with Kenneth Jackson, a State Department official. Jackson, along with DOJ officials, attempted to assume control of USIP's headquarters in Washington, D.C., but were initially barred entry by staff. The standoff intensified when police were called after staff allegedly disabled IT infrastructure and barricaded doors to prevent DOJ's access. Metropolitan police officers later intervened, confirming Jackson's lawful authority, and Moose left the building without incident. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt condemned the resistance from bureaucrats, stating that it was a deliberate attempt to obstruct Trump's reform efforts within Washington institutions. According to Leavitt, staff at USIP engaged in coordinated efforts to prevent the implementation of executive orders, illustrating what the administration calls a broader issue of entrenched bureaucratic defiance. The administration also emphasized its commitment to eliminating waste and inefficiency, aligning with its agenda of reducing federal government overreach. Watch this.
People from DOJ are in the building now. They're here. They had come before. We had communicated with them before, going all the way back to February the 24th. We had conversations with them in which we sought to explain our purpose, our status as a non-executive branch agency created by Congress. The employees of our building are not federal employees, executive branch employees. They are employees of the Institute. We have our own separate board. We have our own bypass authority to go directly to Congress in order to get our money. Somehow, all of those arguments have not prevailed in the conversations we've been having with DOJ, with OMB, and with others, because it was very clear that there was a desire on the part of the administration to dismantle a lot of what we call foreign assistance. And we are part of that family, right? U.S. Institute was created back in 1984 by an act of Congress to assist in resolving conflicts and preventing conflicts and building peace around them. So we are part of that constellation. We are, as you well know, are not the only ones who have been targeted for that kind of reduction. This building really was built not just as a platform for the work that we do. It was built as a symbol of the aspiration of the American people to be peace builders in the world. That's why it is as beautiful as it is. And I have to believe that in the long term, that purpose, that mission will be reaffirmed, and that we will, in one way or another, be allowed to continue that.
The Trump administration has passed $175 million in federal funding to the University of Pennsylvania over its policies allowing transgender athletes to compete in women's sports, marking a significant escalation in the administration's enforcement of Title IX protections for female athletes. The move follows a lawsuit filed by 3 of Leah Thomas's former teammates who alleged that the UPenn and the NCAA violated federal law by permitting Thomas, a biological male, to compete in the women's category and share locker rooms with female swimmers. Former UPenn swimmers Grace Estabrook, Margaret Kazarowski, and Ellen Holmquist released a joint statement celebrating the funding pause, stating that universities must face consequences for harming female athletes. They accused UPenn and the NCAA of knowingly stripping women of opportunities, placing them in danger, and allowing instances of sexual harassment by forcing them to share locker room spaces with a biological male competitor. The lawsuit against UPenn, the Ivy League, and the NCAA seeks to rescind all of Thomas's accolades earned in women's competition and calls for greater accountability in collegiate sports policies. In response, UPenn has denied any wrongdoing, asserting that the university remains fully compliant with NCAA and Ivy League policies and has not yet received an official notice regarding the federal funding pause. However, former teammates claimed that university administrators pressured them into accepting Thomas's participation, even allegedly suggesting that those uncomfortable with the situation should seek counseling. The Department of Education launched an investigation into UPenn in February over potential Title IX violations, and the Trump administration has since intensified its crackdown on policies allowing biological males in women's sports. With the funding freeze now in effect, UPenn faces mounting pressure, while the lawsuit filed by former swimmers continues to challenge NCAA policies and the broader inclusion of transgender athletes in women's sports. Let's take a look.
An education department investigation centered on its swimming program. The start of that investigation was announced last month, right after President Donald Trump signed an executive order to ban transgender athletes from competing against girls and women in sports. The investigation focused on transgender Penn swimmer Leah Thomas, whose collegiate career started on the men's team. When Thomas moved on to the women's team, she quickly started shattering women's records on her way to a Division I title in 2022. But this morning, the Trump administration announced it suspended approximately $175 million in funding due to a separate review of discretionary federal money going to universities across the country. Officials from Penn sent Action News a statement indicating the university had not received any notifications or details about this decision. The statement went on to read, quote, "It is important to note, however, that Penn has always followed NCAA and Ivy League policies regarding student participation on athletic teams." We spoke with Penn.
On Wednesday, protesters gathered at Houston City Hall to urge Mayor John Whitmire to accelerate funding for critical drainage and street projects. The Northeast Action Collective, a group of residents impacted by Hurricane Harvey flooding, rallied with banners and yellow shirts, demanding enhanced flood protection and greater transparency in infrastructure spending. Their demonstration follows a Texas Supreme Court ruling in January requiring Houston to allocate significant funds towards overdue drainage projects. However, with the city facing a $330 million budget deficit and needing to secure $100 million this year, progress has been delayed. Protesters are advocating for an additional $20 million for ditch reestablishment programs, increased annual funding for drainage, and a worst-first approach to prioritize the most flood-prone areas. At the state level, Texas lawmakers are debating how to address worsening water shortages through infrastructure investments. The state estimates that $154 billion will be needed over the next 50 years to ensure a sustainable water supply, and Texas voters will decide in November whether to approve a $1 billion annual investment in water infrastructure. The water crisis has been designated an emergency priority by Governor Greg Abbott, who has emphasized its critical importance for Texas's long-term sustainability and economic growth. As the state grapples with how to balance new water projects with maintaining existing infrastructure, Houston's struggles with food protection and flood protection reflect the broader challenges in securing essential public resources. Watch this.
Their first hearing on newly unveiled plans to boost Texas's water supply.
This is the only thing that we're not addressing that is going to be the limiting cap on Texas that we love and know today. If we get this right, there is no cap.
There will be some healthy debate in the capital. Should Texas focus on finding new water sources or fix its aging infrastructure? In 2023, state data indicates Texas lost 158 billion gallons to water main breaks and leaky pipes.
Conservation should play a big part we are actually kind of wasting our water. So we should minimize the waste, and that would maximize the water available for us.
The House's plan leaves more room for repairs, while the Senate's prioritizes new supply projects, like treatment plants that make water in the Gulf drinkable, or pipes to other states that could sell their reserves to Texas. Both proposals would jumpstart work with an upfront, multi-billion-dollar investment. Then lawmakers would set aside $1 billion each year for water projects.
This is our window.
Lawmakers have, at least for now, backed off plans to create a new TxDOT-like agency responsible for building a statewide grid of water pipelines, though a new office would study how to do that. If nothing changes, DFW could experience water shortages that limit landscaping and maybe construction by 2030. In Tarrant County, I'm Matt Houston.
The news will be back after this break.
Alpha TV, the higher life is here. Watch your favorite movies.
Hi, Dimitri.
Kiddie shows, live TV channels, and many more. Anywhere, anytime on your device. With a unique emphasis on faith-based and family-oriented programming. Alpha TV is the place which points you to the higher life. Gain access to myriads of language channels available to family, friends, and loved ones in their native tongue.
Avete mai sentito dei cristiani che pregano grazie Padre dopo che hanno pregato per aver risposto a queste preghiere mediante Gesù Cristo nostro Signore? Amen.
Get this amazing entertainment on the Loveworld App Store, the Google Play Store, and the Apple Store, and begin to live the higher life. Watch Alpha TV in just 4 easy steps. Step 1, select your package. Step 2, create your login details. Step 3, set up your payment. Step 4, start watching. It's simpler than you think with more perks than you can imagine. Explore the latest news on LN24 International, Bible classics, language-specific stations, and so much more. Get Alpha TV. Watch now. The higher life is here.
Federal authorities have charged 3 individuals with domestic terrorism following a series of violent attacks on Tesla properties across multiple states, Attorney General Pamela Bondi announced Thursday. The suspects, Adam Lamsky, Lucy Grace Nelson, and Daniel Clark Pounder, allegedly used Molotov cocktails to set Tesla vehicles and charging stations on fire, with some incidents accompanied by anti-Trump graffiti and pro-Ukraine messages. Each faces felony charges carrying sentences of up to 20 years in prison, reinforcing the Department of Justice's commitment to cracking down on politically motivated violence. Bondi warned that additional arrests could follow as authorities continue their investigation. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force are also investigating a recent attack in Las Vegas where a suspect in black clothing fired at Tesla vehicles and used Molotov cocktails to ignite several cars at a Tesla collision center. Law enforcement found the word "resist" spray painted on the building, further pointing to an organized effort against Tesla and its CEO, Elon Musk, who heads the Department of Government Efficiency under the Trump administration. The wave of anti-Tesla attacks coincides with growing political tensions, with FBI officials labeling the incidents as acts of domestic terrorism. A recently launched website, DogeQuest, has also emerged, allegedly doxing Tesla owners and providing maps of Tesla facilities, raising further concerns about targeted violence. Officials are urging Americans to report suspicious activity to law enforcement. Let's take a look.
Attacks targeting Tesla vehicles grabbing the attention of the FBI and the White House today.
We certainly think it's despicable, the violence that has taken place against Tesla.
Attorney General Pam Bondi is calling the violence nothing short of domestic terrorism. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force says one case in Las Vegas looks a lot like it might have been.
It certainly has some of the hallmarks that we might think.
In Las Vegas yesterday, somebody seen on surveillance video dressed all in black fired a gun into multiple Tesla vehicles and used Molotov cocktails to destroy 2 vehicles, damaging more of them. That person wrote on the wall of the Tesla building the word resist.
This was a targeted attack against a Tesla facility.
In Kansas City, police say 2 Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire. Earlier this month, shots were fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks were set on fire in Seattle, and Teslas were spray painted in Massachusetts. In North Charleston, South Carolina, 24-year-old Daniel Clark Pounder was arrested accused of vandalizing a Tesla charging station with spray paint and Molotov cocktails outside of a pizza restaurant. The ATF allegedly finding his notebook with anti-government beliefs. Last week, while promoting Teslas at the White House, President Trump calling the vandals garbage.
You do it to Tesla and you do it to any company, we're going to catch you and you're going to go through hell.
In less violent protests, some Tesla owners are now putting stickers over the logo. But regarding the violence,
we are taking the full, brunt of all the FBI resources we have available. Today,
a North Dakota jury has ruled against Greenpeace, ordering the environmental organization to pay at least $660 million to Energy Transfer, the company behind the Dakota Access Pipeline. The lawsuit, filed by the Dallas-based oil and gas company, alleged that Greenpeace engaged in defamation and incited illegal activity during the 2016-2017 protests against the pipeline. Energy Transfer claimed that Greenpeace's advocacy fueled a misinformation campaign that disrupted construction and harmed local communities, while Greenpeace is denied wrongdoing, calling the case a strategic lawsuit against public participation, or SLAP for short, intended to silence activism. Following 2 days of deliberations, the jury in Mandan, North Dakota, ruled in favor of Energy Transfer on most counts, delivering a verdict that Greenpeace has vowed to appeal. The organization argues that the ruling poses a grave threat to free speech and environmental activism, with senior legal advisor Deepa Padmanabha stating, "This case is designed to destroy our rights to peaceful protest." Legal experts and advocacy groups have also raised concerns about the fairness of the trial, pointing to the jury's ties to the fossil fuel industry, the denial of Greenpeace's request to move the trial, and a right-wing media campaign that may have influenced public perception ahead of the proceedings. Energy Transfer welcomed the verdict as a victory for law-abiding citizens and North Dakota residents, arguing that Greenpeace had been held accountable for its role in the protests. In contrast, Greenpeace is preparing for an extensive legal battle, both in the U.S. and internationally, as it plans to appeal the ruling to the North Dakota Supreme Court, while also pursuing legal action against Energy Transfer in the Netherlands as part of a broader fight against corporate intimidation tactics. Watch this.
The lawsuit alleged in 2016 and 2017, Greenpeace and the Red Warrior Society were part of an unlawful and violent scheme to provide financial harm to Energy Transfer and Dakota Access and physical harm to the company's employees and infrastructure. The suit accused Greenpeace and Red Warrior Society of using the anti-DAPL platform to raise tens of millions of dollars in donations under the guise of concern over Indigenous peoples' rights. Energy Transfer also accused Greenpeace of, quote, stunning hypocrisy for leaving the land used for the camps in utterly degraded condition and sticking the state with a multi-million-dollar bill to clean up a, quote, environmental disaster. Initially, the oil company was seeking $300 million in damages. However, a jury of 9 people ruled Greenpeace must pay more than $660 million. In a statement following the ruling, Greenpeace, who had tried numerous times to change the court venue away from Mandan, said it will appeal the decision and feels the case will lead to, quote, big oil bullies around the world continuing to try to silence free speech and peaceful protest.
A group led by private equity executive Bill Chisholm is set to purchase the Boston Celtics in a record-breaking $6.1 billion deal, making it the most expensive sale of a U.S. sports franchise. The ownership transition, which includes private equity firm 6th Street, contributing over $1 billion, also features Boston businessman Rob Hale and real estate executive Bruce Beal Jr. The sale, which still requires NBA approval, is is expected to be finalized this summer, with current majority owner Wick Grousbeck remaining as team CEO and governor through the 2027-2028 season. Chisholm, co-founder of Symphony Technology Group, expressed excitement over leading the iconic franchise, emphasizing his lifelong passion for the team and commitment to Boston's basketball legacy. Grousbeck praised Chisholm's deep ties to the city and enthusiasm for the Celtics, stating that his leadership and familiarity with the organization make him the natural choice for the role. The NBA has not yet provided official comments on the transaction. This sale sets a new benchmark in U.S. sports, surpassing the $6 billion purchase of the NFL's Washington Commanders in 2023. The Celtics' valuation is projected to reach $7.3 billion by 2028, driven by factors such as soaring media rights, payments, and the NBA's new $76 billion broadcast deal with Disney, NBC Universal, and Amazon. The increasing valuations of sports franchises have led to larger ownership groups, as acquiring a team has become more financially challenging for individual buyers. The news continues after this break. Stay with us.
It has only been 44 days, but the president will have a lot to talk about tonight when he heads up to Capitol Hill to address a joint...
6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America.
Inaugurate a new president and vice president.
From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back. Members of Congress, and to my fellow citizens, America is back. Americans have given us a mandate for bold and profound change. Every day my administration is fighting to bring a future that America deserves. We are draining the swamp, and the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. Despite the best efforts of those who will try to censor us, silence us, break us, destroy us, Americans are today a proud, free, sovereign, and independent nation that will always be free. My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future, because the golden age of America has only just begun. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Great to see you again. Thank you for staying with us. A ballistic missile launched from Yemen toward Israel was successfully intercepted by the Israeli Air Force before entering Israeli airspace, with no reported injuries or damage. The Iran-backed Houthi rebel group claimed responsibility for the attack, stating it was in support of Palestinians in Gaza. The missile targeted Ben Gurion Airport near Tel Aviv, prompting air raid sirens across multiple Israeli cities. The incident marks another escalation in the region as Israel continues its military operations in Gaza. In southern Gaza, Israeli airstrikes struck multiple homes east of Khan Yunis, killing at least 10 people and injuring dozens, according to Hamas-run civil defense authorities. Israeli ground forces have also advanced into the Netzarim corridor, further intensifying the conflict. The U.S. has responded to the ongoing conflict by intensifying military actions against the Houthis, who have escalated attacks on international shipping lanes. President Donald Trump warned Iran of severe consequences if Houthi aggression continues, and the Pentagon confirmed that U.S. forces have carried out 30 strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen since Saturday. These strikes represent the most extensive U.S. military operation in the region since Trump's return to office. The Italian Coast Guard is searching for more than 40 missing migrants after a rubber dinghy sank in the central Mediterranean, the United Nations Refugee Agency has reported. The vessel, which departed from Sfax, Tunisia, began to deflate just hours into its journey, leaving passengers stranded at sea. Rescue teams have recovered 6 bodies so far, while 10 survivors, including 4 women, were rescued and brought to Lampedusa, Italy's southernmost island. The Red Cross confirmed that the survivors are in good condition and are receiving psychological care. The search operation is being conducted under challenging sea conditions with aircraft from the European border agency Frontex, the Italian Coast Guard, and other agencies assisting in the efforts. According to the UNHCR, the boat initially carried 56 migrants from Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Guinea, and Mali. According to the UN's Missing Migrant Project, the Central Mediterranean remains one of the deadliest migration routes, with over 24,506 deaths and disappearances recorded between 2014 and 2024. However, the actual number of casualties may be higher, as many deaths go unreported. Close to 70,000 South Africans have expressed interest in relocating to the United States following President Donald Trump's executive order offering refugee status to Afrikaners, citing unjust racial discrimination. The South African Chamber of Commerce in the USA, known as the SACUSA, reported that 67,042 individuals have registered on its website, with most applicants aged 25 to 45 and having 2 to 3 dependents. The U.S. Embassy in Pretoria has confirmed receiving the list from SACUSA, a business group that became involved after receiving a surge of inquiries about the resettlement process. The interest in resettlement comes amid rising tensions between the U.S. and South Africa, particularly after South African President Cyril Ramaphosa signed a controversial land reform bill allowing the state to expropriate land without compensation if deemed in the public interest. The bill, intended to address historic land inequalities, has sparked criticism from some white South Africans who argue it unfairly targets their community. In response, Trump expanded the asylum offer to all South African farmers, describing the country as a bad place to be right now. The diplomatic rift has deepened with the U.S., with them cutting financial aid to South Africa and expelling its ambassador to Washington last week. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the decision, calling the ambassador a race-baiting politician. Meanwhile, the South African government denies claims of land seizures, with Ramaphosa insisting the law ensures equitable land access in line with the Constitution. However, the issues continue to fuel tension between the two nations. Let's take a look.
Afrikaners are mostly white South African descendants of Dutch and French settlers, some tracing back their roots in the country to the 17th century. But it's not clear they want to flee the place they've called home for hundreds of years.
Yeah, why would you want to go? Hasn't been any really bad taking over of land. The people are getting on like normal. And, what are you going to do over there?
That was the response from Neville van der Merwe, a white 78-year-old pensioner living in Cape Town. And he had this to say about Trump cutting off aid to his country.
We all know how Mr. Trump behaves, so why should they do that? It is being spiteful.
Trump is pushing back against a law signed last month by President Cyril Ramaphosa, aimed at addressing the country's unequal land ownership. White South Africans make up less than a tenth of the country's population, but a legacy of the racist apartheid government left 3/4 of privately owned land in the hands of the white minority, after 3.5 million black people were forced from their homes. The new law makes it easier for the state to expropriate land for what it says is the public interest.
And we will not be bullied.
Ramaphosa's governing African National Congress, or ANC, has defended the measure and accused Trump of amplifying misinformation propagated by AfriForum, an Afrikaner-led group. And even that group, which lobbied Trump's previous administration on their cause, said it was not taking up his offer.
We have to state categorically, we don't want to move elsewhere.
That's AfriForum CEO Callie Creel speaking on Saturday. Alongside Creel was Philip Buys, who chairs the Solidarity Trade Union, a group that says it represents 600,000 Afrikaner families.
We may disagree with the ANC, but we love the country. As in any community, there are individuals who wish to immigrate. But the repatriation of Afrikaners as refugees is not a solution for us. We want to build a future in South Africa.
Some said they appreciated Trump's gesture. Werner van Niekerk is a carpenter in Bothasig.
I think it's a very nice gesture from Donald Trump to offer us asylum over there.
He did not say whether he planned to take up the offer.
Just before we end the news, A quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. Judge sides with Trump administration as U.S. Institute of Peace faces overhaul. UPenn faces federal funding freeze over transgender athlete policies amid lawsuit from former swimmers. Houston residents demand flood protection as Texas lawmakers debate water crisis solutions. Jury orders Greenpeace to pay $660 million over Dakota pipeline protests. Boston Celtics sold for a record $6.1 billion to group led by private equity executive Bill Chisholm. And that's the news for today. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm TGK Andre. Good night, and God bless you.